It's a fascinating subject, though. It's one it's not one I've ever done a long, extensive amount of research on it. I almost, to be honest with you, I almost want to make a like a little, not like a long drawn out documentary. Even makes it would cost a lot of research. It's like a short little mini documentary or something, like an hour or something. I would like to make one on Jahbulon sometime, because I like doing ones that nobody's really ever done before. Nobody's really ever done that, and I'd like to. It'd be interesting because there's a lot there, and the reason there's a lot of interesting things that correlate with other things I've already found in my research before. And so from time to time, I'm always kind of going back and looking, and it's always kind of appearing and coming back up with the Jahbulon thing, because it's very controversial. And the reasons why it's controversial are fascinating once you get into it, like all of this stuff. I mean, all of this stuff is, you find it, once you dig into it, the deeper you go, more fascinating it becomes. And shit, man, I wouldn't fucking listen. I wouldn't put I wouldn't go put myself through the shit I put myself through to do this if it wasn't for that. But the reasons why it's controversial is what's fascinating about it. Because on the surface, most people just think, well, some people think it's a conspiracy theory, or it's an old wives' tale or a legend or something of that it's this secret god of Freemasonry, and they claim they don't have anything like that. Like, what's interesting is that, like, if you go look it up, like on Wikipedia or something, it'll say something like, the word Jahbulon does not appear in any ritual approved by the Supreme Grand Chapter of Freemasonry. But here's what's fascinating, because they deny this up and down the wall. But here's what's fascinating about it. They make that claim, the Supreme Grand Chapter of Freemasonry. They make that claim, right? That the word Jahbulon does not appear in any of their rituals that are approved by the Supreme Grand Chapter. Now that in and of itself is interesting, and it gets into another thing that we'll talk about here in a bit, that coincides with the stuff that I discovered after I made the Spellcasters Volume 1 and made Volume 1.5, which was between the making of Volume 1, I discovered, because I couldn't figure out why there were so many people that appeared to be Scientologists, but because they hung out in those circles and everything, but they weren't officially Scientologists. That's when I found out about the Free Zone. It's called the Free Zone, and it's Free Zone Masonry. I mean, Free Zone Scientology, where it's not officially attached to the Church of Scientology, right? It's separate, but it's all still the same stuff, but it's a way where people won't not be directly tied to the cult itself. And that's how so many of these people, in the truth movement and stuff, have gotten in and been attached to, all the anti-vax stuff that connects to Scientology and all that. It's all in the Volume 1 of the film. But this is something that I've talked about. I didn't want to get to this yet. It's something I've talked, an argument I had talked. There's different, when people the term Freemasonry now is become like Illuminati or anything where it's almost a blanket term, but it doesn't apply to every. That's why when you hear people say stuff about negative things that Freemasons did, and then people get mad about it, it's because they don't have an understanding that, and a lot of people don't. This is something even Masons don't. I've had discussions and arguments with actual Freemasons over this. And even they don't know, because they don't know everything about, just because you're a member doesn't mean you know every single thing about Freemasonry. It does not. Most of them don't know hardly anything about it. That's been the experience of the ones I've talked to. Most of them don't even, I know more than a lot. They ask me questions because I've studied it in some cases longer than a lot of these guys have been Masons. And the fact of the matter is that there are offshoots of Freemasonry. And those offshoots of Freemasonry oftentimes have their own things that aren't in every single degree of Freemasonry, whether it be Royal Arch or, Scottish Rite Freemasonry, York Rite. Then you've got all kinds, there's tons. There's Phoenix Masonry. There's all kinds of different offshoots. And so through the years, some of the things that were at once in use by mainstream Masonry have gone by the wayside and have either been picked up or still used and not erased from some of the different offshoots of Freemasonry. This is where it gets interesting with the Jahbulon thing, because, like I said, the official statement from the Supreme Grand Chapter of Freemasonry is that word doesn't appear in any of our materials. That's not us. We don't have that. But here's the real interesting fact. That actually isn't true. Let's read this. Jahbulon, or some people say Jahbulon, see, that sounds French to me. Jahbulon. That sounds. And anytime you see something French like that, that there's something where a Frenchie was involved in this. Because when you look at how the word is pronounced, and listen, anytime you start getting into Frenchies, you start getting into Illuminati territory, is a word which is allegedly used in some rituals of Royal Arch Masonry and derivations thereof. It has been found to be speculation or even a European mispronunciation of the word Jehovah. That's not, it's not speculation. No, that's a lie. Non-Masonic authors have alleged that it is a Masonic name for God and even the name of a unique Masonic God, despite repeated statements by Freemasonry officials that there is no separate Masonic God. That's what no motherfuckers want to think about right there. I see, now you start getting into the whole thing about, the Bible shit with put no other gods before me. Well, what guy? If you're the one true God, why are you saying don't put any other ones before me? Because you just clearly gave away there's more than one. Fail, God. Fail, whoever fucking wrote that fucking book. You know what I mean? You just failed. Because you just let the cat out of the bag. There's more gods by telling us not to worship any of the other ones except you, because you're the only true one. Wait a minute. Wait a minute here. That's you see, that's what motherfuckers don't want to think about. Because one thing you start to learn with these guys is everybody says, oh, they're liars. No, they're actually not. They'll say things that aren't true, but they're not liars. They'll word them in a way where it's not technically a lie. Because by saying there is no separate Masonic God, and you're not exactly renouncing Jahbulon either. Yeah, I don't think motherfuckers want to have to get comfortable with the fact that they're worshiping what that fucking thing looks like. It's fucking. It has different, but the most common thing you see with it is it's the body of a spider with the head of a human that looks like a fucking big old, it's a giant dude with a giant schnoz. All right? A big old fucking Hebrew hammer up there on his fucking face. I mean, he's a big old schnoz. To do with a Jew schnoz on a spider body with a cat head and a frog head. Okay? Now, this kind of gets into some of the stuff we were talking about the other night with multidimensional realities and whatnot. Okay? you don't honestly believe that any of these actual, I don't care what, right or religion or whatever it is. People will get it and they hear that, and you immediately think in your head, still can't believe South Park hasn't jumped all over the Jahbulon thing. It'd be so perfect. Wouldn't you love to see South Park do the Jahbulon thing with the fucking spider body with a Prince Charles head on it, with fucking a frog head and a cat head on it? People hear that, and they hear that Jahbulon, that's what Jahbulon looks like, right? And immediately you laugh and think, well, that's stupid. That's stupid. There's no such thing as that. Yeah, they're dumb. Those guys are dumb. I worship Jesus, and he's got long hair and looks like Ted Nugent, but and he's white too. He came from the Middle East, but he's a white guy. There's no such thing as a spider with a guy's head on it and a frog and a cat. They're dumb. They're dumb for worshiping that. That's what your average dummy and your average person thinks, and that's what they're counting on you thinking. Because it doesn't get you anywhere near to what the actual truth is, and that's the real point of all the subterfuge and everything when it comes to Freemasonry and secret societies in general. So, it's fascinating. The original Ghostbusters movie? Man, there was some right-on real shit in there. When I go back and watch that now as an adult, I'm like, damn, they put some real shit in there. The whole stuff with the building and that building and how it was built with this, by this occult architect. Gozer the Gozerian, Gozer the Traveler, and Gozer was this deity that the Sumerians worshipped. I think Ray Stantz, Dan Aykroyd's character says that. Babylonians and stuff worship this thing, remember? And they're up there on the building, and then Gozer shows up. Choose. They're always, clear your heads. Choose the form of Gozer the Traveler. Jahbulon is the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Somebody, however many thousand years ago, that goes to the Gozerian or something like it, showed up and it was like, choose the form. Everybody was like, clear your heads. It's probably somewhere, some Semitic country. Levi, Abraham, clear your heads now. Clear your heads. Shalom. Clear your heads. The choice has been made. Wait. Abraham, did you think of... No, I didn't. No. Oy vey, I didn't think of anything. What about you, Levi? No, oy vey, not me. Gefilte fish. So, what about you? Fucking... I'm trying to think of another fucking good Chuck and Tuesday off the top of my head. I can't think of one. Fucking, there's a million of them. What about you, Malachi? What about you? Malachi's over there with his hands going, oh, fuck. Like, I mean, I don't know. I was just trying to think of, I just thought of just trying to think of the dumbest thing I could think of, Something that doesn't exist. And the first thing that popped in my head was this thing that was like a spider with a fellow Jew on it, with a frog head and a cat head on it. I'm being serious, though. That's kind of what it is. It's an interdimensional energy. Jahbulon is a god, so it's so you have to think about God, the spirit in interdimensional terms. That's what the spirit realm is. It's interdimensional realm. It's not this realm. So the Jahbulon wouldn't show up with a fucking cat. No, that is the form that this multidimensional entity took on to reflect itself to three-dimensional carbon-based entities like ourselves. It presented itself like that. That's essentially what it is. It's like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man wasn't a fucking evil entity. It had this fucking spiritual god go to the Gozerian that made an appearance every so many thousand years and takes on the physical plane form of whatever the person that it encounters chooses. And that's kind of what Jahbulon is. It's a multidimensional entity. Now, here's what's fascinating. So they say the word Jahbulon does not appear in any ritual approved by the Supreme Grand Chapter of Freemasonry. However, it did appear there. This is what I haven't done enough research in to find out yet. I did a little cursory research. I couldn't find anything. Couldn't really find anything. But here's the real interesting thing. It did appear there. It was there. They removed it. How fascinating is that, ladies and gentlemen? Up until February of 1989, in the Grand Lodge in England and in other Masonic, York Rite and all that stuff, Royal Arch degree, Jahbulon was in the ritual manuals and in the ritual text until February of 1989 when it was removed. And after that, they disavowed it. Now, how fascinating is that? That to me is when I went, oh. Because now they just deny it and just say, no, there's no such thing. It's made up. We don't know what you're talking. No. They do. They're lying. That's where they lie. Because now they just disavow it and act like it never existed, it never did. And because, that's been over 30 years. So there's been so many people that have come through all branches of Freemasonry throughout the world during that time, that the people that have come through since it was in the past 30 years, since it was removed, don't even know anything about Jahbulon. That's why you talk to a lot of Masons and they don't know what the fuck you're talking about when you talk about Jahbulon. Because it was removed. But it was kept in some of the offshoots of Freemasonry. And although they basically made it a secret. Because once it started, they already were getting criticism. Freemasonry's always gotten criticism from Christianity and other religions because of the alleged stuff about them having a separate God and stuff. And that was the real reason why they did it then. Non-Masonic authors have alleged that it is a Masonic name for God, and even given the unique Masonic God, despite repeated statements by Freemasonry's officials that there is no separate Masonic God, nor a separate proper name for a deity in any branch of Freemasonry. Is this misinterpretation of a Masonic God that has led to debates about and condemnation of Freemasonry by several religious groups, notwithstanding the fact that it has been proven to be pure speculation by those who seem to know neither the Bible nor history. It's not pure speculation, though. And there it is, the next fucking state. You fucking morons. The fact has been proven to be pure speculation by those who seem to know neither the Bible nor history. This is the next sentence after that. In England, no ritual containing the name has been in official Masonic use since February 1989. It doesn't say anything else. How fucking hilarious is that? One sentence they say it's proven to be pure speculation, and the next sentence they say, well, no ritual containing the name has been in official Masonic use since February 1989. And then they leave it at that. So what about prior to February 1989? That means prior to February 1989, the ritual was there and was in Masonic use. So it can't be speculation. This is what makes it more and more intriguing, ladies and gentlemen. Because it proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that they have willfully tried to suppress and hide the Jahbulon thing. They literally tried to keep that under their skirt or their fucking aprons or Masonic nut rags of Jahbulon. Freemasonry is structured on the books of 1 and 2 Kings in the Bible. As a Mason, you must believe in God, but they don't say what God. You must also take pledges to be charitable and aid widows and fatherless children. Please note, some of the conspiracy theories that surround Freemasonry come from the Catholic Church and reach as far back as the era of the Crusades. One such story, with no direct links to Freemasonry, surrounds the time that the Templars began returning from the Holy Land. Was no direct link to Freemasonry. I mean, I'm reading this. Of course, I'm reading this on Wikipedia because the best place to read stuff from is from a place from a source that you don't agree with, because that's where you start to get the truth of it. I'm just reading something off a fucking page and I agree with all of it. You're not learning anything from that. It's the whole reason why I read all those stupid Zechariah Sitchin books and all that. Not because I agreed with it, because I didn't agree with it. I wanted to separate the wheat from the chaff. It's hilarious. No direct link. So in their words, the Crusades and the Templars and all that had nothing to do with Freemasonry. Well, that's just an absolute lie. That's just an out lie. The Templars fled to Edinburgh, Scotland, and established Freemasonry after the Crusades. The ones that were left, the ones that didn't get burned at the fucking stake. Whoever wrote this on this page is a Masonic apologist. Whoever wrote this probably is a Freemason. That's hilarious. One such story with no direct links to Freemasonry, although again, there's nothing. That's the absolute polar opposite of the truth. That is the absolute polar opposite of the truth. It directly connects to Freemasonry and directly connects to the founding of it. The very roots, the very foundations of Freemasonry as it exists today came from the Templars. Now, you could argue it goes back even farther and earlier than them. Absolutely. 100. Oh, no question. In fact, the farther back you go and the deeper you dig, and you look at stuff like what I talked about with Alice Bailey's Initiation Human Solar book and the different lodges in different planes of existence, and one that's, you go to in the spirit world that's on Sirius and all that stuff. The further back you go, you start to realize this stuff predates even Earth and humanity. This a version of this, even though it wasn't called Freemasonry, because back in the day it was the Pythagorean mystery school. That was where it all came from. And that led to stuff like Enochian magic and communication with angels in the spirit world and stuff like that, and fucking King Solomon. I mean, the Star of David is the Hermetic Seal of Solomon, and it's a magical seal. And that's what the Templars were doing. Templars were going to try to find they wanted to find all the keys to magic that King Solomon had, because they believed they could rule the world with it. And that mission is continued today in secret by Freemasonry, and even though it's not listed and put out as their main goal and objective, that is the source. Templars began returning from the Holy Land with science, advanced medical techniques taught to them by Arabs, and most importantly, money. The Pope and King Philip of France began to lust after what the Templars returned with. Also, the Templars were giving away gold, medicine, and food to the downtrodden of Europe as each knight returned to his own country and people. Now there's some truth. There's some truth. Now that's true. And that's the real truth of why they fucking got axed. I mean, not to mention the fucked up necromancy bullshit they were doing. They were fucking channeling demons through fucking severed heads. And I talked about it in the past, but people laugh every time I talk about this, but it's true. That's where the fucking term kiss my ass came from. Kiss my ass, motherfucker. Kiss my ass. That's where it came from. Because the Templars would do a ritual, and the fucking Grand Master would fucking drop his fucking drawers, and they'd all line up and fucking kiss his fucking pink starfish. You don't even actually think that the term "kiss my ass." I always wondered that when I was a kid. Like, kiss my, like, why is that? I always wondered why that was something. Why is that an insult? So you kiss somebody's butt cheek. So what? Well, no, what I didn't know when I was a kid was, nah, somebody says kiss my ass, they don't mean kiss my cheek, bitch. They mean get in there and kiss that fucking rusty balloon knot. Get in there, get a little tongue in there. Do it for Jahbulon. Yeah. I mean, they were doing some dirty shit, but they were fucking up shit for everybody. They were giving gold away. They were fucking healing sick people. They set up a fucking credit since they gave people stuff on credit. The Vatican was like, nah. I mean, it was like mafia bullshit even then. The Vatican was they were the Cosa Nostra. They were the fucking big boys in town. This new little upstart fucking rival gang of Goodfellas started stepping up. And all of a sudden, they started becoming a power threat to the people running the show. As history goes, the king and the pope grew jealous of the power of the Templars and how people clamored after them. With that, the Vatican and King Philip charged them with false claims of heresy and had Commander Jacques de Molay. That's why there's a de Molay. Freemasonry. There's another one of the offshoots of Freemasonry is de Molay Freemasonry, and had Commander Jacques de Molay, and there's Knights Templar Masonry and all that too. And Templars arrested, their property seized, and their families killed. On March 18th, 1314, Knights Templar Grandmaster Jacques de Molay was burned at the stake on trumped-up charges of heresy. King Philip IV of France was responsible for the destruction of his holy order. There's the Frenchy connection. King Philip IV of France was responsible for the destruction of this holy order. The Daisy's men were arrested, killed, and charged on Friday the 13th, 1307, which forever made Friday the 13th synonymous with bad luck. The Vatican did not apologize until 2007. I remember that. That was one of the first stories I covered on this show when it started in 2007. I remember covering that probably the first week I was doing the show. According to Masonic historian Arturo de Hoyos, the word Jahbulon was first used in the 18th century and early French versions of the skate. I knew it. Yep, I knew it. It just sounds Jahbulon. It sounds fucking Frenchy to me. '18th century and early French versions of the Royal Arch degree. There you go. Told you. Knew it sounded Frenchy. So you can't say that it was pure. Again, you can't say this was pure speculation. It was there. It was there hundreds of years ago in Freemasonry. Wikipedia is going to say it's fucking proven to be pure speculation. No, it's not pure speculation. It exists. It relates to a Masonic allegory in which Jahbulon was the name of an explorer living during the time of Solomon who discovered the ruins of an ancient temple. Within the ruins, he found a gold plate upon which the name God, Yahweh, YHWH, was engraved. In Duncan's Masonic Ritual and Monitor, published in the mid-19th century, Malcolm Duncan uses the word as a recognition password in his rendition of the Royal Arch degree, and in a footnote states that the word is a combination of sacred names. However, there has been controversy regarding Duncan's ritual. According to Turnbull, Everett, and Denslow, Duncan has the candidate swear, "I furthermore promise and swear that I will support the Constitution of the General Grand Royal Arch Chapter of the United States of America, whereas the General Grand Chapter at the time styled itself General Grand Chapter of Royal Arch Masons of the United States, a subtle but significant difference. Some Masonic authors state that even if Duncan's ritual is authentic, it is either an outdated exposure or that it had been superseded by another explanation. See, there you go. Even when Freemasons come out, this guy was an actual Mason. Even when actual Masons come out and talk about the origins of it, they have other Masons come along and try to poo-poo it. OTO, Ordo Templi Orientis, according to Francis X. King in The Secret Rituals of the OTO, the word is used in two rituals of the Ordo Templi Orientis, the Lodge of Perfection, in which the candidate receives the 4th degree, which is called Perfect Magician and Companion of the Holy Royal Arch of Enoch, and the Perfect Initiate or Prince of Jerusalem degree, which falls between the 4th and 5th degrees. King prints in his book the lyrics of a song that mentions the word Jahbulon. That's interesting. That might be what a lot of the fucking musicians and stuff, Jimmy Page and motherfuckers like that. I mean, what's his name? Danny Carey from Tool. I think that might be, because there's a lot of, there's a big time connection within the music industry in the OTO. It has been for decades. And it has to do with Crowley and being so many Crowley worshipers within music and stuff. But really, it's not really Crowley worship. It's a worship of the things that Crowley brought to the forefront that weren't brought to the forefront for many, many years because they were associated with demonology and black magic and all that stuff. So that's why a lot of the musicians are so into Crowley. It's not so much that they're into Crowley as they're into the things that he brought out, which had most of the stuff, the stuff that he brought out, I mean, stuff that had been there for, it had just been occulted, it had been hidden away, it had been secreted away. Crowley brought it out to the mainstream. Stuff like, you've seen Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin. You've seen him with the Zoso on his pants and on his amplifiers and stuff. That was one that got me, that blew me away when I first dug into it. Was, wow, fucking Zoso is this goddamn, it's an entity. It's a multidimensional entity, a demonic entity. It's an entity that's been worshipped for hundreds, thousands of years. It's super old. And somehow through Crowley and stuff, Jimmy Page found that and just fell into it. It was almost like he was using Zoso as like his own personal demon, or Jahbulon, or not Jahbulon, but Zoso was working. I think it's Zoso. I think Zoso was working through him during the heyday of Led Zeppelin, during the years when they were making records together for the death of John Bonham. That's what I think. I think that's why he had it everywhere. He had pants with it, jackets, and on the amplifiers, record covers. That's a mystical energy thing. Every time someone sees that name and reads it out loud on his pants or on an amplifier, it gives energy to it. Here's one that I put together myself many years ago, because you always hear like the Rasta guys, and in reggae and stuff, you always hear them talking about Jah. And I always wondered, they always say it's short for Yahweh or Jehovah or something. But I always wondered if it had something to do with Jahbulon. Check this out. It's been suggested that the Rastafari word for God, Jah, comes from the term Jahbulon. Although the name Jah, a transliteration of Yah, shortened from Yahweh, appears in the King James Version of the Bible. In Psalm 68:4, the term Jah also appears throughout the Psalms in other Bible translations. For instance, the Darby translation or Young's literal translation, William David Spencer, in his William David Spencer in his 1999 book, Dread Jesus, proposes that Archibald Dunkley and Joseph Nathaniel Hibbert were among the preachers that inspired the Rastafari movement, and that both were members of the ancient mystic order of Ethiopia, a fraternal order derived from Prince Hall Masonry. Spencer believes I was right. I didn't even know I was right. I suspected I was right, but didn't know I was right. Spencer believes that several features of the Rastafari movement derive from this lodge, including the name Jah from the word Jahbulon. Wow. That pay me, motherfucker. Now, that's some shit right there. Now, that's some shit you're not getting everywhere. I'm here to tell you. Let's get these operating costs covered. Come on, let's go. Dude, the motherfuckers that invented Rastafarianism were Prince Hall Masons. That's crazy. According to the Reverend Canon Richard Tideman, in an address to the Supreme Grand Chapter of England on November 13th, 1985, the word is a compound of three Hebrew terms. Now, this is what I was talking about the other day. This is what I've never been able to find absolute proof of. The Reverend Canon Richard Tideman is in an address to the Supreme Grand Chapter of England on November 13th, 1985. Wow! See, I blew past that when I was reading this. Wow, I didn't put it together yet. Wow, that's fascinating. So the Supreme Grand Chapter in England, as of right now, says Jahbulon does not appear in any ritual approved by the Supreme Grand Chapter. So they excommunicated Jahbulon. They axed him out, right? But here's what's fascinating. I don't know who this Reverend Canon Richard Tideman is, but if he's addressing the Supreme Grand Chapter in England, that's the highest level Masons in the world. That's where the highest level Masons in the world reside, in England. So wow. Okay, so I guess I was wrong about that. I mean, I don't know who this guy is, but listen, I mean, if the Grand Chapter in England is letting him come in and address them and say this, they wouldn't have brought this guy in unless they thought he knew what he was talking about. So they bring this guy in and he tells them on November 13th, 1985, that Jahbulon is a compound word of three Hebrew terms, meaning Yah, I am, which indicates external existence, Baal, which means owner, husband, or lord, and On, which means strength, pronouncing three aspects of qualities of the deity, namely eternal existence, ownership, and omnipotence, and equating to the eternal God, Master Almighty. Jahbulon. That is fascinating. This guy comes in November 13th, 1985, and lays out to the Grand Chapter of Freemasonry in England what Jahbulon, what three terms it comes from. And then 4 years later, 4 years after that guy comes there as a guest and gives that speech, 4 years later, they excommunicate completely from their text and from their rituals. Wow. Somebody, somebody fucking figured out what it, I think they probably were going along with this shit for a long time. People didn't really realize what they were. That's crazy. They didn't realize they were worshiping the fucking Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. According to Walton Hanna, who the fuck is Walton Hanna? I love how they just throw these names out like you expect us to know who these guys are. Walton Thomas Hanna was an Anglican clergyman from Forest Row, Sussex, who converted to Roman Catholicism and who wrote the book Darkness Visible. In January 1951, Hanna wrote an article called Should a Christian Be a Freemason? In Theology, a magazine produced by Society for Promoting Christian Knowledge. This was controversial as both the King and Geoffrey Fisher, the Archbishop of Canterbury, were Freemasons, as were many Anglican clerks. The Church of England Assembly discussed the subject in June 1951, although there was no substantial conclusion. Wow, okay. So this is a guy who was, all right, I got you, trying to get the truth out about Jahbulon. According to him, same thing. Jahbulon, O-N, a name in Genesis in the Bible, a Potiphar priest of On, thought in older times to be a name of Osiris, but now known by Egyptologists to be the Hebrew form of the ancient Egyptian name of the city of Heliopolis. That's interesting. Much of the available material that discusses the word Jahbulon does not address the administrative and jurisdictional distinctions amongst the apparent bodies of Freemasonry. Shabanga. That's what I was talking about. Okay. Yes. This is a very important point. It's one I get asked about more than anything, and it's one that I've been asked about by Masons before because, as I stated before, I kind of already got into this earlier, but just to refresh, you can, again, Freemasonry is just, it's a blanket term. No, I've said this before. No, not all people that are Freemasons are bad people or into bad things or are doing occult rituals. The majority of them are not. However, the fact that that's a fact doesn't change the fact that there are offshoots and there are different degrees, just like there is with Scientology. I believe this is how in my opinion, in both Scientology and in Freemason, and again, this is just my opinion. Plus, you got to throw the fucking Mormons in there. We don't know what the fuck they're doing. Whatever they're doing is a version of Masonry too. We don't even know what God it is they're talking about. It might be Jahbulon too, for all we know. In my opinion, based on my years of research into these topics, I believe that the mainstream of the mainstream of the Church of Scientology and the mainstream of, that's why you have like the Sea Org. That's why you have, you know, it's the same thing. You have these different little degrees and offshoots. You got, let me reiterate that. The Sea Org is not an offshoot of Freemasonry. But it's a separate organization within the organization, whereas the Free Zone is completely separate from the Church of Scientology and doesn't have anything to do with the actual church and its administration and everything at all. The same thing is the way in Freemasonry. I believe in Freemasonry, it's only the York Rite, the Scottish Rite, that's not necessarily true. There's a bunch of different ones. I can't honestly tell you that I know which ones are absolutely approved by the Grand Lodge and which ones aren't. I know for a fact Royal Arch degree, York Rite, Scottish Rite, Masonry, all those are. I don't know if like the De Molay Freemason, the De Molays were, you've got De Molay Freemasonry. I believe there's two. I think there's two separate ones. I know there's like the Youth De Molays, which was like a Freemasonic youth group. But I thought there was, am I thinking of something else? I was in a Masonic lodge one time. I snuck in there. I thought it was the one in Dallas. It's not there anymore, but it was the Grand Lodge is still there. Across from the Grand Lodge, there was a almost looking black building and stuff. And I thought I was supposed to have I had a fucking appointment to go in there and be able to film. They didn't show up on me. They decided they didn't want to let me in once we had already had this set up to go film this up there. This is a few years, 10 years ago, 10, 11 years ago. But, shit, longer than that now. 12 years ago. God damn, time's flying. And I ended up going in this, there was a door and it was open and they were having a wedding there. So I went in and I snuck up into the fucking levels of the thing. I climbed to the very top of this thing. It was crazy, dude. I felt like I was like, went back in time to like the Kennedy assassination or something. It's real close to Dealey Plaza, but I wound up in this like top, like attic part. And there was all these file cabinets and I could have stole a bunch of stuff I wanted to. I didn't take anything. I didn't want the curse of the goddamn fucking Jahbulon worshippers following me. So I I didn't fucking. I thought about it though. I'm not gonna lie to you. I thought about, man, maybe I should fucking steal something. There was cabinets full of documents and shit in there. I could have fucking went in there and raped and pillaged documents. Nobody knew I was up there. Nobody saw me. But when I was coming down the stairs, I saw these guys. So I went all the way. I've talked about this. I went all the way up these stairs. Right, there was a stairwell. As you walk in, there was these big rooms. There was like a wedding going on over here in this big room. There was a stairwell that went up to different levels. And when you went up to these different levels, there was different rooms in there. And I looked inside of them. They were ritual rooms. It was like a floor of like different rooms, like almost like classrooms in a school. But instead of being a classroom, each one of them was set up to do a different ritual, like for a different degree. Pretty smart, actually, I guess. So whenever, because you're going to have so many people doing those rituals, going through those degrees all the time, they have a room set up for each one. And there was like some swords and shit in there. I saw some, regular Masonic regalia and stuff. But I went up to the very top and I came all the way back down. And here's what's fascinating. Right by the stairwell, there was a elevator. And I had this ring on that was one time, and I kind of like, had a symbol. I remember what ring it was. I think it was an ohm ring. It had like the ohm on it. And I think maybe from a distance, these guys may have thought it was a Masonic ring. Because they kind of gave me the fucking gang signs. I was coming down the stairwell, about to go out the door. These two guys were coming in, and they go into an elevator shaft, and I went, wait a minute. There's no elevator. There were no openings. I went all the way to the very top of this building. There was an elevator in there that went somewhere in that building, ladies and gentlemen, that it wasn't apparent. That like there was like a secret underground part of it or something. Because that was the first thing that struck me. I said, these guys are getting on the elevator. I'm like, I'm thinking, where the fuck are they going? I just went through every floor on this building from the stairs, and there are no elevator shafts at the top of this building. So that can only lead you to believe that there's something in the basement. There was some secret thing under the basement there. That's probably where they do the real shit at. All those fucking rooms I saw was where they do all the fucking low-level Blue Lodge, dumb shit masonry stuff at. These boys were going downstairs where the fucking, where the real fucking nut rag worshiping is going, nut rag stuff's going on, where they're fucking, circle jerking to fucking Prince Charles head spider guy or whatever. But next to the elevator shaft, there was a bulletin board that had all the times for these different Freemasonry sects that I'd never heard of. And one of them was the Templars. Someone said Templars. One said Demole. There was a bunch of names that I recognized. And I was like, wow. I had no idea they had all these. So there's tons of different offshoots. Royal Arch Masonry is an appendant body to Freemasonry. In some areas, it forms part of the York Rite. In others, it is an independent body. To be eligible to join, one must first be a Master Mason. The administration of, that's with any of them. That's also with York Rite, and that's also with Scottish Rite. You have to go through the 3 Blue Lodge degrees and become a Master Mason at the Blue Lodge. And that's why there's so much confusion with people saying, oh, the Masons aren't bad, because the majority of Freemasons, or majority of people that become Freemasons, that's as far as they ever go. It takes them a long time just to get to that level, a lot of them. So once they go through all 3 degrees of Masonry and they get to Master Mason and they hear that term, Master, I'm a Master Mason, they really believe they're a master. They believe that's just, and they aren't. And that's why it's an interesting dichotomy between that and what Alice Bailey talks about, because it's almost as if they're doing in this physical plane reality what they do in the non-physical plane reality. Meaning you reach the top, you think you're tip top, you big shits in Turdville. Wrong. You want to get into the real shit, you got to start all over again and become an adept again and start from square one. Which, again, square one, obviously that's a Masonic term. And start all over again. That's where it goes. The administration of the Royal Arch is entirely separate from the administration of craft masonry. Every Masonic organization is sovereign only in its own jurisdiction and has no authority in any other jurisdiction. This means that there is no standardization whatsoever with regards to words, signs, grips, or other Masonic secrets. Boom. That is a key thing to understand, because I've ran into this. I've run into that a lot with people. You'll see stuff. You'll see people throwing stuff in pictures and videos. You'll see stuff, and people will go, it'll be some rapper or something. They'll be like, whoever, pick a rapper. Let's just say Jay-Z, because he's always throwing up that Levite tribe. Represent the Levites, motherfucker. Levites. Represent, biatch. The lost tribes, nigga. Throwing up that white priest. That always cracked me up. That's what that is. I discovered that looking at a grave a book one time. I was looking at I don't know, it was when my father passed away, or my grandmother, somebody. I was looking through. It was a book of things that you could get, engravements you could get for a headstone for someone that died. And I was looking through it, and it had different ones, and it had a bunch of Masonic ones in there. I was like, wow, here they are. It had all the different Masonic ones you could buy and get for somebody that was a Mason. And one of them was the fucking Jay-Z hand sign, and it said Levites. And then you go looking with the Levites. Levites were one of the lost tribes of Israel. They were known as, they were the white priests. It's like Jay-Z throwing up the fucking white priest. But my point is that you'll see these things sometimes, and most times people go, oh, so-and-so is throwing an Illuminati hand sign. No. And that's where that's another thing, is designed to get people to go, oh, this dummy thinks fucking this guy's throwing up a fucking Illuminati sign. That's how they get away with it, because there's so many different ones that even though you might look in some Masonic source, some official Masonic source, and you don't see that grip, that hand grip, or that hand sign in there, doesn't mean it isn't one. That's what I'm telling you, man. The Freemasons themselves are responsible for a lot of their own disinformation. This is a fact. Walton Hannon stated in his book, Darkness Visible, that the interpretation that Jahbulon was a name for God reportedly disturbed Albert Pike. Yes, now this is true. This I have heard, because I was doing some research into why Jahbulon doesn't appear anywhere in the Scottish Rite. Nowhere. Which is fascinating to me, because he openly talks about Lucifer. Jahbulon disturbed Albert Pike, the sovereign grand commander of the southern jurisdiction of Scottish Rite, who, when he first heard the name, called it a mongrel word, partly composed of an appellation of the devil. Fascinating. See? Shabanga. See what I'm talking about? Oh, man, that makes my dick hard. That's the shit I've been arguing with people for years. Listen. Again, this is where you start getting into how there's different factions of Freemasonry, and not all of them worship or even are into the same thing. That's what makes that lodge up in Guthrie so fascinating to me, because all of the elements of all the different types of Freemasonry are all encompassed into this building. And that's why it's so confusing to some people. Albert Pike talks about Lucifer being the true god of the Masons and whatnot in Morals and Dogma. And this is an argument I've had with people for years. The guy in the red PJs that everybody calls the devil, with the pitchfork, sticking the pitchfork up your ass, even though popular culture and movies and TV shows constantly reinforce this incorrectly, Lucifer and the devil are not the same guy. They are two separate entities. And people will argue that, Christians will argue that with you all up and down all day long. And I've had that argument with people before. I can't speak for the rest of the other rites of Freemasonry, but specifically when it comes to Scottish Rite Freemason, they are not devil worshippers. They are Luciferians. And that is two different things. Yes, we've all been confused by TVs, media, and everything else, and shows and books and everything, where over the last few hundred years and stuff, we have amalgamated, we've done that ourselves. That's a construct of our modern society, where we've made the devil and Lucifer one thing when they are in fact two separate things. And that's proof of it right there. You see that? Because if Albert Pike, if Lucifer and the devil were the same thing, Albert Pike wouldn't have taken offense to the word Jahbulon. He called Jahbulon an appellation of the devil and called it a mongrel word, and he was disturbed by it. He didn't like it. Didn't like the fact that anybody was worshiping that. You see where I'm getting at? So if the devil and Lucifer were two different things, Albert Pike would not have had a problem with it. He wouldn't have called the term Jahbulon an appellation of the devil. Well, what do you have a problem with the devil? If you're one true goddess Lucifer and Lucifer and the devil are the same person, then why would you have a problem with Jahbulon being an appellation of the devil? Because the devil and Lucifer are not the same fucking thing, people. They're two separate things. Two separate entities. And Albert Pike knew that. And that's where you start getting into stuff. Well, okay, well, you start getting into things of, well, if that's true, then who are these guys over here when they're worshiping Satan or worshiping the devil or whoever? Who are they worshiping? And who are these people worshiping over here when they're worshiping Lucifer? And if Lucifer isn't the devil, and we've been lied to about who he is, then Lucifer is even more intriguing than he was before. Because then it becomes, oh, wait a second. There must be something interesting about this Lucifer guy. Otherwise, they wouldn't be trying to make us think he's somebody he isn't. And there wouldn't be these high-level people in the highest levels of these secret societies who are worshiping him, but who also appear to be very much intertwined with the church. I mean, fucking Albert Pike was a direct agent for the Jesuits. A Church of England report into the compatibility of Freemasonry and the church reached conclusions of objection based on 6 points. One of these points was Knight's interpretation of Jahbulon. Jahbulon, the name of description of God, which appears in all the rituals, is blasphemous because it is an amalgam of pagan deities. In effect, the use of the term is taking God's name in vain. That's hilarious. So that's why they got rid of it. They admitted that was their God. They got rid of its use because they believed that by saying it, they were taking God's name in vain. And I thought it was the Lord's name in vain, not God. Dun, dun, dun. You see what we're getting at here? These motherfuckers worship Jahbulon. Okay? I mean, that's what we should really just sum up this whole thing with. So there isn't any question ever again. These motherfuckers worship Jahbulon. They may all worship Jahbulon, for all we know. But that's what it is. It's a multidimensional entity that they have gone out of their way to disassociate themselves with, but at the same time be respectful of it by saying we're getting rid of it so we don't take God's name in vain. And again, I thought it was supposed to be the Lord's name, not God's name. Wait a minute here. You got a God and a Lord? The interpretation by Knight also contributes to an assertion which emerged in 1987. There was a link between Freemasonry and the Dajjal, a Muslim equivalent of the Antichrist. A reference by David Misa Pidcock, a British convert, has been widely propagated on the internet following the September 11th attacks in 2001. The Muslim group Mission Islam states on their website that based on Knight's interpretation, quote, Freemasons secretly worship a devil god known as Jahbulon. So again, notice how there's that thing where they're trying to associate that with the devil again. It may be, and this is just speculation on my part, but where we get into that thing, especially with the fascinating stuff with Albert Pike, where Albert Pike's clearly openly talking about worshiping Lucifer and then appalled that there are Freemasons using this term within Freemasonry, which in his terms, his words, is a mongrel word that's an appellation of the devil, indicating that to him, anything associated with the devil would be a bad thing. And then what the Muslims believe. So I think it's clear when you look at that, again, when you understand, you find, and you do the research and you find out that the devil and Lucifer are not the same thing. And then you find out there's this secret God, and they keep calling, there's the association of the word devil with Jahbulon. That's when you start to realize that's what these guys who are the true devil worshipers, and what people call devil worshipers or Satan worshipers, what they are actually worshiping is this multi-dimensional entity who chose to take on this fucked up form of a Prince Charles headed Juno's looking dude with a cat head and a frog head and a spider head, tape of Marshmallow Man. That's what they're worshiping. And that the devil isn't the guy in the red PJs with a pitchfork sticking it up your ass for eternity. It's worse than that. It's, oh, Jesus Christ, it's worse than that. God damn. Your nightmares as a kid were nothing compared to what reality is. You thought fucking if you went to hell, you're going to have fucking Adam Sandler in a devil costume, little Nicky, looking, sticking a fucking pitchfork. No, it's way worse than that. Nope, that guy on the fucking... My dad used to eat that gross, remember that potted meat? You remember, you guys know what potted meat is? Ugh, that stuff's gross. Canned meat, like canned meat. My dad used to eat that shit when I was a kid. It's gross. Smells like fucking pure asshole. Smells like fish bait. Oh, it's gross. But the kind that he always used to get was red devil. I remember he had a red devil. I'm like, dude, I'm not eating nothing with a goddamn devil and a pitchfork on it. Fuck you. That's where you're going to end up. You're going to end up with a fucking pitchfork dude sticking it up your ass if you eat that shit. That's what they're really worshiping. They're worshiping that cat-headed, Prince Charles-headed, frog-headed spider thing. That's what the devil is. That's what you got to look forward to if you go to hell, is that fucking guy. And that's why the fucking spider webs and all that shit are on the fucking, on money, on American money. Those spider webs and shit you see if you look close on the fucking dollar bills and shit, that's the fucking Jahbulon web. How many fucking, devil and money correlations can you make? The root of money is the root of all evil, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, that's why. Jahbulon, that's the motherfucker. That's the stuff of nightmares, dude. Fuck the guy with the red PJs and the pitchfork. That's some old bullshit right there. That's some old bullshit. You ain't getting nobody, dude. You ain't beating nobody just like that. If I went to hell, I'd laugh at that motherfucker. I'd be like, you got all you got? Bitch, you've been down here 1,000 years. You ain't got to change your clothes. All you got some fucking cape and some horns and a pitchfork. You ain't scary. You ain't beating nobody, man. You ain't scary. And then that big fucking fucking Prince Charles headed fucking cat fucking frog rivet fucking with a spider thing comes out in a web and fucking wraps you up and sucks your blood for 10,000 years. That's hell. That is fucked. Man, I am dropping fucking truth bombs all over the place. Last show and this show, god damn. You're not getting this everywhere, man. I'm telling you that. You guys don't know how good you got it with me. You really don't. We gotta reach our goal, man. Everybody get your contributions in and help, please.